the first thing he told me was like, son, if it's not in the Bible, get out of it. And that was like a turning moment for me.
All right, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Modern Day Don, where we bring you interesting conversations and collaborations and a bunch of adventures along the way to help you as we document this journey to be a modern day Don. Today, we have a very interesting guest, a very, very good friend of mine, a man that I'm very comfortable calling my brother, Mr. Kavon Frazier, entrepreneur, former professional athlete, father, and the foundation, as he'll tell you, is in his faith as well. So, Kay, thanks for being here, my man.
Appreciate you having me. You know, it's
Yeah.
always a pleasure.
Yeah, to start things off, you know what? I feel like I got to go down the fatherhood route, right?
Got
You
to,
just
yeah.
had your fourth baby girl at 30 years old. You know, God bless for it. I mean, that's absolutely incredible.
It's a
So,
blessing. It make me feel old, bro. For real. Uh, Obviously, my oldest is 6. So I got Callie. She's 6. She's my oldest. And honestly, man, she's my baby still.
Yeah.
You know, the first is always something special about your first kid, right? Because you're still figuring out what it takes to be a father. They see a lot of the trials and tribulations and struggles that you go through, and see a lot of stuff that they probably not supposed to see, right? Because we still figuring out. Because we had Callie before me and my wife was married, so we still figuring out what marriage is all about. You know, we still trying to find ourselves. I was still playing, you know. So, and then Elias is my 4-year-old. That's my baby too.
Yeah.
And then Zariah, that's my baby. Zariah is our new baby, and
Yeah,
Kyler
yeah.
is my 1.5-year-old. So
so
it's a blessing.
for all the men
All
out
girls.
there, the young men out there that want to start families, what's something you do different with, you know, having the fourth baby girl that you wish you knew when you had the first baby?
Well, you know, I'm a lot more present now. You know, with my first baby, you know, I you know, kids is like it adds pressure, good pressure, but it still adds pressure on you, especially as a father, as a man of the house, you know, as the only like financial provider of the house, right? So when I had Callie, I was still playing, so the pressure was more so around making sure that she's gonna be set. So I spent more time focusing on my career on football more than, you know, I was present in the household, right? Now that kind of shifted, right? And it had to shift because we got 4 kids, we outnumbered,
Yeah.
right? My wife is breastfeeding, you know, so while I'm at home, you know, I have to be present. It almost forced me to be present. So
Right.
now this time around, it's like a little bit less about business, right? You still got to provide, right, in the business world or whatever you do, but it's more about being present in the household a little bit.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. And so, one of the things you mentioned, you're still playing, right? So if we take it back and talk a little bit about football to kind of get us
Yeah.
going down, like
Yeah.
we talk a lot of F's here: faith, family, fitness, finances.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the business when we get a chance. But you know, to start it off, because professional athletes in a way are they're entrepreneurs in a way, right? I mean, they're
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
who they are
Yeah.
is their product, right? You're always
100%.
working on your product. There's competition of people trying to take your spot. So when you were coming up in high school, going to college, and it was Central Michigan, you went to college, right?
Yep.
Central Michigan. So was there a point where you were investing time honing your skills that you really said to yourself, well, you know what? Shit, there's really an opportunity to take this and compete at the highest level.
No, definitely. And, you know, to be able to make it to the highest level, you got to be completely focused on football,
Yeah.
right? You know, football almost have to be like your God, right, to make it to that level. I don't believe that it should be, but, you know, that's just the nature of like the 0.01% of us that make it to the league is we have to be fully invested in it, right? That moment that kind of start coming reality for me was my Man, honestly, I start realizing pretty early. Like
Mm-hmm.
when I was in high school, I always had this vision that I was gonna do something, play professional.
Wow.
Right? I feel like God
Did you play any other
planted that
sports at
vision.
the time?
Yeah, I was football, basketball, track.
Okay.
Right? So, but I knew it was gonna be something. My high school or my elementary football coach before he passed away, his one of his last conversations with me, he was my first football coach ever.
Mm-hmm.
Is one of my best friend's fathers. Uh, One of his last conversations with me was because I was about to quit football. Right, I was going into my sophomore year
High school
and
is high school.
of high school.
Okay.
And I was going to completely focus on basketball. And one of his last conversations with me was, "Hey, football is going to be your way out. Don't quit that sport."
Mm-hmm.
Right. So after that, I started taking it a little bit more serious. We got a new high school head coach. He invested a lot of time. Man, honestly, I wouldn't be where I am without Don Fellows. Like
Don Fellows.
Don Fellows. I'm still really close with him. I golf with him every time I go to Michigan. He invested a lot of time in me, as a man, but also, he was taking me to football camps, things that my dad wasn't really around for.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it was at that moment that I knew I was going to play D1. Right. And then as I got to D1, I started playing as a freshman, and I was, a lot more athletic than everybody.
Okay.
So all of the other freshmen that I came in with, I was way more developed than everybody. So that's when I started realizing that God gave me a real gift, right, in my athleticism, in my mentality, right? So I played as a freshman, started as a sophomore, started as a freshman too. In my sophomore year, I got benched. And when I got benched, that did something to me that helped me throughout the rest of my journey.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I got benched. Somebody actually took my spot. Like the guy I'm still really, really close with. He took my spot.
Just competition.
Competition.
He
I had
beat you
a few
out.
bad games
Yeah.
to where the coaches, they put all the blame on me, but that's what we signed up for, playing safety.
Yeah.
Right? Is people pointing the finger at you if
Yeah.
it's a big play that happened.
All right.
So he came in, his first 3 games he played. I started the year off with 3 picks in like 2 games. He ended the year with 3 pick sixes in like his last 3 games.
Uh-huh.
So he took my spot and
So that was the end of freshman year going into sophomore.
that was the end of my sophomore year.
in the sophomore year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I started my freshman year. The end of my sophomore year, he took my spot for like the last probably 3 or 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
And that bled into my junior year. So I didn't start my whole junior year. But even though I wasn't starting, I still knew that something was going to come out of it, right?
Okay.
Something good has to happen. With every storm, right, there's always another side. There's always another side of it.
Sure.
So my mom kind of got me, she pushed me through that. And my mom is a big, she's somebody that I really look up to in life. She pushed me through, that challenge. She helped me get through that challenge. And then my senior year is when everything kind of, flipped.
Okay.
Yeah, everything turned. First game I had like 16 tackles versus Oklahoma State. And that's when agents started to reach out, scouts starting to reach out and ask about me, scouts at the practice. And that's when I knew I was like, okay, it's time.
Got it. So now Don Fellows, right? That the guy who had that huge impact on you.
That's my guy.
That was your guy.
That's
He's got a
still
great
my
name.
guy.
I mean, his name is Don. I mean, I feel like we got to
Don,
meet him.
Yeah, right. Yeah, man, still my guy.
Or we got to meet him if he comes to town. Please
Yeah,
let me know
for
if he
sure,
comes to town.
for sure.
If he comes here to Dallas, we got to take him for some cigars or something.
Meet him.
Now we'll get him a Don hat.
He'll be a good person on the guest. He can
Oh,
talk.
would love to have him.
Yeah. We can do a 3-person.
No, for sure.
Yeah,
for
no,
sure.
he's dope, man. Don is a guy that's misunderstood for sure.
In what way? What do
A
you
lot
mean?
of people in the city where we from, they don't like him because of how he come off. Right? He's loud.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He's loud on the field, but even off the field.
Okay.
But he attracts good people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I got the privilege to hang around like his crew of when I went back, and just, man, everybody's just good people.
Yeah.
Don's a great coach, but he's hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we went to a Christian school and he cussing us out.
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
They wasn't used to
That's
that.
what's up. Yeah.
I grew up in the hood at a hood organization,
Yeah.
right? In the hood at a, all black organization.
Yeah.
And that's how, and it was ran by police officers, but that's how our coaches used to talk to us, right? They
What do you
used to
mean it
cuss
was
us
run
out.
by police?
The organization, it was a Boys and Girls Club.
Okay.
It's called Seaman Center
Okay.
that I grew up in. I was raised in this organization. It was ran by all police officers.
Okay.
So, I mean, it was super unique because we grew up around like all these black police officers that poured and like really spent their life pouring into kids.
Wow.
And, but, and then those same police officers was football coaches as well, too.
Okay.
That's where my mentor who passed away, he was a football coach. The one that told me, like, your future is in football. But
So wait, that wasn't Don. That was someone else.
yeah, that was somebody else. Don told me to.
Yeah,
He told
yeah,
me to.
yeah.
Don told me to.
Yeah.
But before Don told me, my first football coach, when I was 7 years old, he told me that as well too.
He's like, listen, you got a gift.
Yeah, he was like, that's your way out.
Yeah.
Right? Don't quit. And then Don came in, he told me the same thing. It was like God, right, speaking to me. He speaks in more than one. He confirms it through more than one person. So Don was that coach that, cuss his kids out, right? He gets after people, but it's like that tough love. It's like that tough love father. Like if I'm coaching, I coach my kids in soccer, and my daughter told me that, almost every soccer game, and I'm not proud about this,
Right.
but I'm tough on her. Every
Yeah,
soccer
yeah.
game, I find something that she didn't do right, right? Every game. Like you don't play perfect games. So I have to pinpoint that thing that you didn't do right. But, I also love you, right? And I also, I celebrate. I jump up if you score a goal, right? So Don is that guy too, right? And the Christian school that we went to, they wasn't used to that. Like the parents couldn't jive with that, right? So he clashed a lot. He won championships for him, had all winning seasons almost, and they fired him.
Really?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So
We got to have a conversation with Don.
yeah,
I can't
yeah,
wait to meet him.
Yeah.
I can't wait. It sounds like he has a lot of wisdom that a lot of young men could even use that don't get the opportunity to be that close to him.
He does. He dedicated his life to help the underprivileged,
Yeah.
right?
Respect.
He's still a businessman, right? He does business, right? He has multiple businesses that he does, but he's also a high school football coach,
Got it.
right? He's that coach that brings the kids to the house, and back before NIL used to feed us and take us places that our fathers wasn't taking us, even though it was illegal, right? But he was that coach that poured into us, right?
Got it.
Yeah, he that coach that will, if he's at this predominantly white school, he'll recruit a kid from the city, right, from the hood, and get them out of their situation and bring them into a better environment with better education, right?
Okay.
He's that coach that will vouch
Got
for
it.
these kids. Yep.
Got it. And you said something there that is unbelievably important, which is environment, right? I mean, how many of us start in different environments, and our environment affects the way we act and we interact within our environment. So, with the thought of speaking in to talk faith a little bit, you're a man
100%.
that wears your faith on your sleeve, and I have a ton of respect for that. That as we've become friends the last couple of years. Were there any turning points in your life that stand out in your mind, like a story or?
No,
that
definitely.
kinda
So I grew up
changed
in
the
the
trajectory?
I grew up in the church. We went. My family basically ran the church,
Okay.
right? My great uncle was the pastor, and he had sisters. He had a bunch of sisters, and all his sisters had a bunch of kids, right? That was back when they was having, 10, 11, 12, 13 kids. And so, I have a lot of cousins, right? A bunch of cousins. And we all grew up in this church that my great uncle was the preacher of.
Was the preacher of?
Right.
Okay.
It was a Baptist church, people catching the Holy Ghost, people jumping up and down, and now I look back and I understand it because people go through hard things in life and God helped them get out of it. So I grew up in the church, right? I grew up around it. It wasn't until my mom got sick that we stopped going to church. When her MS started to really take over her life. So we stopped going to church for a little bit. I went to college. And, in college, faith isn't really a thing. Like, I mean, unless you're at, I mean, even at these Christian colleges, you just trying to find yourself as a man. You trying to explore, experience. You doing a lot of things that you probably shouldn't be doing, right? You drinking every weekend, almost sometimes every day of the week. I mean, that's college, right? Even though that's not what it's supposed to be about. Like that was my experience at college, to say the least. Then in the league, I thought I found Christ. Well, I thought I refound Christ. I already knew who God was. I grew up in a Christian school. I knew, I could recite all the books in the Bibles. I could recite, and still can recite a lot of scripture and stuff like that. But that was because we had to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Got baptized at a very, very young age, like at 2 years old, right? But didn't really know what I was getting myself into. I didn't really make that mental transformation, right? I didn't make that decision to fully follow Christ, right? And even in the league, right, I got baptized again while I was in the league, but I felt like while I was in the league, I was only committing my life to Christ because he was going to help me like make more money in the league, right? Or if I
Okay.
went to chapel, you know, I I played better. So it was almost like a superstitious
Got it.
type of act,
Okay.
right? It wasn't until my uncle who pastored the church passed away, and I was in a whole different phase. I was exploring different things like the law of attraction, and I was, really studying all these uh, worldly principles, these things that the world called truth. And he passed away, or he was dying, and I went back to see him, and because like it was God speaking to me through him.
Mm.
And this is a guy who read the Bible probably 1,000 times or more, that had all these books. The only thing he studied and he read was about God, right? He lived it, right? And then he ended up talking to me a lot more about what it actually means to follow God, right? And that was a big transformation for me. And that was when I made the conscious decision to not just live this life to where God is in my mind. I believe in Jesus, right? But to actually follow him, right? And to actually wake up every day, and that's the first thing I think about,
Right.
right? That was when I made that decision. Was when, not when he passed away, but when he was like, "Hey, if it's not in the Bible, get out of it."
Got it.
And I truly believe that was God speaking to me.
Right. Wow. No, no, that's powerful stuff. And speaking a little bit when you mentioned that you were rebaptized when you were playing, or
Yep.
when you were playing. So
Yep.
to go to where we started was our D1 at Michigan State. You started to get looks
At Central Michigan.
excuse me, Central
Yep.
Michigan. What does that look like to then go to the league? I mean,
Hmm.
what's that process like? I'm sure there's a lot of young guys watching that either
Yeah.
aspire to do the same. I mean, what is that?
100%.
I mean, what does that look like? Is it, I mean, things are always evolving and changing, but, what was that like when you're starting to get looks from recruiters or from
From scouts. Yep.
scouts? So
Yep.
you get the
Yep.
scouts are coming, they're checking you out at the game,
Hmm.
and then how does that translate into you having conversations to get drafted by the Cowboys?
Yeah. So I mean, it's a whole process that me being from a smaller school. This was when social media was first started to pop off. So you really couldn't find a lot
Yeah.
about like we didn't have a lot of people that made it to the league. I mean, we did. Every year at Central Michigan, we had some people, but it wasn't like Michigan or Michigan State to where the guys come back and they pour back into the players. I didn't have a father or a cousin or uncle that played in the league, so I was just exploring it, and it was a journey, right? Whatever popped up to me, I had to figure out, and I kind of call myself a little bit of the black sheep, like because I had to go through a lot of the trials, and God allowed me to do that to help guys now. But the whole NFL or college to NFL process, uh, I could take it to you step by step, and step by step is obviously you playing. You got to play well to even get looked at.
Right.
And once you get looked at, um, you gotta uh after you're being noticed and stuff like that, obviously they put draft grades on you even before like the process even starts.
Mm-hmm.
But so I had like a fourth round draft grade. I was like ranked like as strong safeties, like the eighth best strong safety that's coming out in the draft. Then the next step is after the season end, right? You have like the bowl games, the college bowl games, but you also have like the senior bowl games and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get any invites in any of the bowl games, right? Which I felt like I should. A lot of that stuff is relying on like, who you are, what school you go to, who's your agent, so you go through the agent picking process before that.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't think that I picked the best agent to help me get into the games
Mm-hmm.
at the
Was it the
time.
same agent through your career, or
No,
do
I
you
switched
you end up
agents like three times.
switched up?
Yeah, or two, yeah, three times.
Yeah.
So I had three different agents, just for the three different phases of my career.
Right.
Yeah, so
Because you were in the league for 6 years.
for 6 years.
6 years, yeah.
Yeah. So after you pick an agent, they try to help you get into these bowl games. I didn't get into any bowl games, so I switched agents just because I felt like I should have been into one as the eighth best strong safety. I should have been in one of the top two bowl games. And I didn't get into any bowl games. Now you got the NFL Combine. I did end up getting into the Combine, right? That's invite only for
What
like
year
the
is
best
this?
300 people. It's just 2016.
16.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So the NFL Combine is invite only for the best 300 people who the scouts, the GMs think that these guys are the guys that's going to get drafted, really.
Top 300. That's it.
It's top 300, that's it.
Got it.
Different positions, obviously. So, you go train somewhere to get ready for the Combine, right? So I went down to Miami and was training, and that's what we do now, right? Is train guys to get ready for the Combine. So I went down to Miami, trained for the Combine, got faster, stronger, more athletic, more explosive. And then ended up going to the Combine, had a broken foot that I didn't know I had a broken foot. They found
Get
it at
outta
the Combine.
here. Uh-huh.
Yep. So they stopped me from doing, like, I couldn't do anything at the Combine besides bench and obviously the interview process.
Yeah.
So after that, I had to rely on my pro day, which is like a smaller version of the Combine at your school, right? So all the scouts came out, right, to watch me because I was rated so high.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't perform at the Combine. So they was like, hey, the only time we can see him is at pro day. So with the fractured foot, I did all the drills. I killed all the drills. And then that's what led me into getting drafted. And then the league, man, that's a whole different animal.
Is it?
Yeah, it's a whole different animal.
What's it like when a call comes through, or like when you actually found out you
Yeah,
got
for
drafted?
sure.
What's
I
that
mean,
like?
it's exactly what people see on TV.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
It's exactly like there's no. I didn't go to the actual draft because
Okay.
I wasn't like a first round pick.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's literally what people see on
Yeah,
TV.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
not like I didn't have any tips like that. Hey, you're gonna be drafted here. I didn't know before, right? So I'm waiting the whole draft, and I got drafted in the sixth round, like
Sixth
pick
round.
212, and right before the pick, they called me, and it was the Cowboys. Hadn't talked to them the whole time. I didn't do an interview, not one interview with them the whole time.
Really?
Not one interview with them. Other teams will call throughout the draft, was like, hey, get ready, we might draft you if this guy isn't there, or like, even teams would call you, was like, hey, if you go and draft it, we would love to have you,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But yeah, man, yeah, I didn't talk to the Cowboys once before.
Wow.
And that ended up being the team.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And all right. So sports being such a huge part of your career now, your career is a chapter of your life. Now the newest chapter, of course, entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think you and I have talked about this over cigars a couple times, but
For sure.
how was your transition, and when did you, because I think you were still playing at the time, right? Because I think I remember you saying that you started some entrepreneurial, a few things,
Yep.
and then the
Yep.
Raiders called and you went back, you
Yep.
played for the Raiders for a little bit, right?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
what was, going through that story again of
Yeah.
all of a sudden, wait, there's a new chapter that I got to start writing. I got to start paying attention. No one's going to write it for me. what do I need to think about? What are some of the things that I need to be writing? Oh, I started writing it before the other chapter's done.
Right, right.
And then that affected the previous chapter, maybe the how that ended. So if you could go into a little bit of that entrepreneurial unpacking,
Mhm.
which kind of leads us to where we're going today, and we'll talk a little bit about the future. But if you could kind
Yeah.
of unpack that a little bit.
So I'm a big believer in God gives you experiences to help build you for the future, right? So, and some of the experiences isn't good experiences, right? Some of the experiences is bad experiences, right? So that's just like when Joseph, he told his brothers, you guys meant it for evil, but God meant it for good, right? So I've always been an entrepreneur from a young age, but what really set the tone is one, I had a bunch of businesses that failed, right? I had, a clothing line that failed. I had a CBD company that failed, right? So I've had my hands in multiple different things before I found out what I was really called to do in this season. And then also, I had multiple injuries while I was playing.
Mm.
So I was playing ball, and my first 5 years I had 5 surgeries,
Oh wow.
right? So, but through those injuries, I'm going to train, I'm recovering, I'm meeting physical therapists and stuff like that, and that's where I met my partner, who started off as my physical therapist, recovering from a knee injury, and and through that, we ended up going in business together. So in 2019 is when we started Built For It. And in the year of 2019, a few things happened that allowed me to shift my focus and focus simply on Built For It. One, uh, I ended up having a season-ending injury playing football. I tore my pec, um, and I had labrum surgery. Right, I already had a labrum tear, but I ended up tearing a pec that sat me out for the whole year
Mm-hmm.
in Game 3 of the season.
This is where you're still with the Cowboys.
This is when I was with the Cowboys.
Okay.
This was my 4th year. It was my contract year. Everything is dependent on this year, and I ended up tearing my pec out for the
Mm-hmm.
season.
Okay.
Right? Obviously it sounds like a bad thing, right? But that led me into starting up my business, right? Just because I had time, I had energy that I wasn't focused on football at the time because I'm recovering.
Mm-hmm.
So I started focus on, okay, what's next, right? That's when my mind shifted to what am I going to do if I can't ever play again, or if a team never call again, right? Because my contract is about to be up with the Cowboys after this year, and I'm hurt. I'm missing damn near the whole year. So shift my focus, started the business like a couple months after I tore my pec, and then the rest is history.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then what was the transition like? Then you still didn't get a call from the Raiders, then, right?
So the next year, I already had the business up and running, and we were small at this time. Like the business was, we might have had 2 or 3 employees.
Mm-hmm.
It was 3 partners, me and my trainer at the time, and then my physical therapist. And we had the same model, but in a 2,000 square foot shed. We had a chiropractor, a physical therapist, training. We had everything in one, but small, right? 2,000 square foot, like literally almost a garage.
Yeah.
Um, that next year I ended up going. It was COVID, so COVID hit. People thought it was going to kill us,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because every other gyms in the industry, especially small like us,
Mm-hmm.
probably went out of the business. But like I said, God meant it for, or the devil meant it for evil, but God meant it for good.
Yeah.
COVID was actually good for our business because the other gyms, the big gyms in our industry, had to shut down because there was a lot of eyes on them. We just shut the garage, and all the guys came to us.
Got it.
Right.
Got it. Got it.
Right. So
And where was that? That was here
that was in Prosper.
in Prosper.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So,
But not the
that
space
year,
you're in now is what 6,000-7,000 square feet.
so we have 2. We have 4, but we
Yeah.
have 2. One is 10,000 and one is 16,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the one in South Lake is 16.
16. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I went and played for the Dolphins for COVID year.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next year, I didn't get I had workouts. I signed with the Bengals. They cut me in training camp. And then I didn't get a call for a while. I was going to workouts and stuff like that, killing the workouts. But, it's the league is different. It's a young guys league.
Yeah.
I wasn't that old at the time. I might have been 28, 27, but me playing 5 years in the league already, they viewed me as an old guy who we already know what he's capable of. Let's give these young guys a shot.
Mm,
So it wasn't until like week 10 that I got a call from the Raiders, and then that's when I finished my career at
got it.
the
Got
Vegas
it.
Raiders.
Got it. Got it.
Yep.
Interesting. Interesting. So, when you were talking about when things happen and we don't know why, there's this old Chinese proverb where you might have heard it before. There's a guy, there's an older guy, and his son. I'm gonna completely botch this story, by the way. But anyway, we're gonna go for it. So he's coming back, and his son breaks his leg doing something, and at the same time, the army is coming to recruit. And you say, "Wait, you know what? Let me start over." He has a horse that runs away, and everyone around him says, "Oh, that's too bad. Your horse ran away." And he's like, "Ah, we'll see." And then all of a sudden, the horse comes back, and he has a pack of horses with him. So he's like, "Oh, you got all these horses. That's great." And he says, "We'll see." His son is breaking one of the horses, falls off, breaks his leg, and everyone's like, "Oh man, that's so terrible." And he's like, "I don't know, we'll see."
Mm-hmm.
The army comes to draft, and they can't draft his son. So now, like, that's great. Your son doesn't have to go to war. He says, "We'll see." Right. So the whole point of the story, and of course, me botching that story along the way with a
Right,
smile on
right,
my
right.
face, but the whole point is that we don't know why.
Right,
Right. And
100%.
we have
100%.
no idea. And to be able to roll with it, and to be able to say, I don't know right now, God, but if there's a reason, and you'll let me know eventually, fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big challenge that all of us are faced with.
Huge challenge for
Huge.
everybody, right?
Crazy.
But God is creative. He's an artist. And that's one thing that I really admire about God. I mean, the first thing that we learn about God in the Bible is that he's a creator,
Yeah.
right? He created the heavens and earth, right? He's a creator,
Yeah.
and that tells us that since he made us in his image, that he wants us to be creative. But that also tells us that a lot of the trials and stuff that we go through, like, he's going to turn it in his own way and make it turn out to be good, because he knows the plans that he have for us, plans for us to prosper, right? And not to harm us, right?
Yeah.
So if that's true, if you
Crazy.
really believe God, if you really believe in God, you will believe his word.
Yeah.
So if that word is true, and we know he's a creator, he's going to somehow spin all these situations to turn it to be good.
Crazy, right?
Yeah,
Crazy.
man, it's crazy to think about, because as you're going through the trials, and man, we go through many.
Yeah.
I've went through many. I'm going through many currently,
Yeah.
right? And as you're going through them, it doesn't make it easy, right, to know it. But the only way for your faith to grow, I believe, is to go through the trials.
Right, right, right.
Right? That's the only way for your faith to grow.
Yeah.
That's the only way for you to get wisdom.
Who's been the most impactful? We got Don Powell, which I can't wait to meet this guy.
Don Fellows.
It's Fellows. Man, I messed up his
You
name.
butchered it. No, it's all
I
good.
can't wait to meet Don. I'm giving him a Don hat when he comes to Dallas.
Yeah, 100%.
But aside from Don, who, let's say once you got on the entrepreneur path, is there anybody that stands out in your mind that's been a huge influence on you? Because one of the things that we talk about within modern day Don is the journey that we're all on.
Yeah,
Right. We're all on a journey.
Yeah.
We're all at different places. I know I've made innumerable poor decisions.
Right,
I
right,
try my
right,
best
right.
not to say good or bad.
Right,
Right. Because we don't know.
right.
We don't know, but hindsight can tell us whether or not it was a poor decision. What decision-making processes did we learn along the way? And was that decision a poor decision, or was it a
Right,
well thought out decision?
Right,
I know I've
right.
made a lot of poor decisions, especially in my earlier years.
Right.
That's one of the reasons why these kind of conversations are so meaningful, because I'm not only absorbing
Right.
so much from people, but I'm also bringing those conversations. So
100%.
yeah. So is there anybody that stands out in your mind that's made a big impact once you were writing that next chapter?
Definitely, man. And this guy, his name is Mike Van Gessel.
Okay.
He founded a big construction company back up in Michigan, huge, probably like 400, 500 employees. He invested in my life at a very young age, right? He helped my mom, You know, when my mom MS started to take over, he helped us transition into a better uh, handicap accessible house. They helped her get a handicap accessible van.
Mm.
Like he's always supported us and poured in and gave back. Right, he gave back to the community by helping families at a time. Right, and Mike Van Gessel, obviously, he made millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars. He didn't have to pour back into us, but you know he chose to do so. Right, just because he's a God fearing man. And as I was transitioning, I was trying to acquire another company, right, at the time that we sold off, and we don't own it anymore, but we owned it for about 20 months, and then we flipped it. And I was trying to acquire that company, right, and that was going to help jumpstart, right, this next chapter for me. And Mike Van Gessel, you know, he took a chance, right? He was one of the two people that, I mean, he invested a large portion of the funds that I needed to go out and buy this company, right? And that helped jumpstart and took built for it from this minor, you know, company that's, you know, almost like you know, we was kind of like an imposter a little bit. Like we were seeing all these athletes, but we wasn't really competing with the Exos. Exos is a company in our industry that is probably seen as the leaders. Exos, we wasn't competing with these bigger companies until he helped us out and took the chance on me. And one thing he told me is, obviously the financials made sense, right, for him to invest in it. But and one thing he told me is like, I'm not investing in the business model. I'm not investing in the investment opportunity. I'm investing in you, right? And that gave me a lot of confidence, right, to take the next step because I felt like an imposter, right? I felt like I had imposter syndrome a little bit just because, you know, a football player that's transitioning to the entrepreneur world and now you got investors and you dealing with their money too, right? If this failed, like, you know, that's relationships that fail.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But him telling me that he's investing in me, right, that gave me a lot of courage, right, to go out and make things happen. Right. So, and it gave me the pressure as well too, good pressure, right, that I was able to apply and push through a lot of trials that we went through.
Yeah. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
A little more on the playful side of things. Top three rappers of all time.
Man, you know what, man? I'm
Come
in a
on.
journey to where I don't really listen to rap like that no more.
What about growing up?
But you know, if I had to say the top three rappers that, you know, that I like,
Yeah.
first is probably 50 Cent,
Okay.
right? Not so much for the music, but for what he's doing after.
Business wise,
Oh
right?
man, he's a beast. He's a beast.
Beast.
50 Cent,
What he's built is incredible.
incredible.
His career,
Incredible.
Vitamin Water, his Hollywood career.
Hmm.
He's a dog for sure.
So he's one.
We'll get
I
him on the
love
show.
Snoop Dogg.
Snoop. Okay.
Snoop.
Business side also. So you're also going from like the whole picture of the
Yeah,
brand that they built.
just how you build your brand.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like moral failures is a big thing for me. Like I can't just look at the music
Yeah.
and not look at everything else. Like even when I'm talking about like athletes, it's tough for me to like an athlete if they are not a good person outside of being an athlete, right? I
Okay.
think it all comes together, right? So Snoop is one. And then three, I mean, I don't know what's his involvement in the stuff that's going on now, but you know, Jay-Z, you kind of got to put him in there just based off of what he's built. And like I said, I don't know the involvement. If his involvement is deep in it, then I mean, he's not on my list anymore. Like
Right, because
honestly,
that goes back to character.
yeah, 100%.
I think that's it's interesting is that
if
that's
you
a word.
if you have the like if you're that sick to where you can, you know, entertain that, like and play around with that,
Yeah.
I can't rock.
Look,
with
I
you.
mean, there's a lot of. I think character shows through it a lot. I think that's a big conversation we have.
100%.
I was talking with a buddy of mine, Alex Marley. I think you know Alex, and we were talking, and we were just talking about stoicism and kind of those ancient philosophies that a lot does relate to the Bible, but it's not quite 100% aligned. And we're just talking about character and how as we get older, how that just it stands out above so many other positive qualities that a person can have. I mean, I'm sure there's a
100%.
lot of guys you meet and be like, all right, you know what? They might not be my cup of tea all the time, or
Right,
they kind of
right,
rub you a certain way, and
right,
no
right.
problem. But you know what? You want somebody to say, you know what? All right, Kavon, he's a man of character.
100%.
Take that all day versus
100%.
whether they like you or dislike you.
That's that's my number one. Well, not my number one, but that's important.
Yeah,
My number one thing that I want people to know about me is that I'm a man of God. I'm a follower of Christ,
respect.
right? Just because, if you a follower of Christ, character is, it's gonna be a fruit. It's gonna show it's gonna show as a fruit.
Right.
But in my opinion, the roots gotta be right for the fruit to grow,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
For the right fruit to grow, right? All the fruits of the spirit has to do with being a good human, has to do with having a good character,
Right.
love, joy, peace, kindness, right? Faithfulness, right? All that has to do with being right, having good character. But how do you get the fruits of the spirit, right? It's about investing in your spiritual life, right? And learning more about the creator, right? And spending time with the creator, in my opinion, right?
Right.
From what I've experienced too, right? So, other people have their own philosophies and their own, right, worldly principles that they live off of. I don't entertain them personally.
Right.
Like,
Right.
not
Right.
the people, but I don't entertain those philosophies and
Yeah.
principles anymore.
What's the future look like business wise?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Man,
What do
we
you
always
think?
looking to grow, bro.
Yeah,
Like, that's a motto of mine. If you're not multiplying, that's what God tells us to do in the Bible.
that's it.
If you're not multiplying, then, you're dying. At the end of the day, like, we should always think about how do we steward these blessings? How do we multiply it? Right? It's like the parable that Jesus told when, you got, uh, the farmer. What was it?
What
It
is
was
it?
the master that gave somebody.
The talents, the parable of the talents. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
The
yeah.
master that gave somebody 1, 5, and 10,
Yep.
and the person and the people with 5 and 10, they came back and doubled it. The person with 1 buried it with fear, right? That the master was a harsh guy, and then the master took everything that he had and gave it to the one with 10, right? So that tells me is we got to multiply, right? And we got to always seek how do we grow the gifts that God gave us, right? It can be physical gifts, it can be spiritual gifts, it can be, material, different things like business and
Yeah.
stuff like
Physical
that.
capabilities, right?
The
I mean,
finances,
yeah,
how do you
sure.
multiply it, right?
Yeah, man.
Right, and that's what we looking to do for. We're built for it. Just multiply it in different ways. Some things that I can disclose, some things I can't. We realize that medical is huge in our industry.
Okay.
So how we're shifting is focusing a little bit more on medical than the training side of the business. The margins is just tremendously better on the medical side of it. So how can we focus a little bit more on that, right? Make sure that we're building up the training for sure, but that's just the makeup of the business. It's like the face, right?
Right.
But the heart and soul is the medical.
Right. 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 Good to hear, my man. Good to
Yeah.
hear. Well, appreciate you being here.
I appreciate
It's
you.
been fun, man.
Man, I can do this all. We can do this all day. We got to
That's
do
what
a
I'm.
part 2, man.
No, no,
for
we'll
sure.
we'll do a part 2, and,
sure.
we got the first live Don event. Of course, we get to record these and be able to document the journey, and hopefully, we'll look back on this one day and with fond memories as we're recording 3 and 4. But we always learn from each other, and
We always
I
do.
appreciate your friendship and the brotherhood that we've been able to build, and appreciate you being here, my man.
I appreciate you, and I appreciate the journey. Seeing your journey and how things is all coming together, right? How you transforming yourself, learning from the experiences that you went through when you first got here, and then the person that you is now. So I appreciate these conversations.
Thank you,
Every
my
time
man.
we sit down, we have a conversation like this.
Always.
It's not
I mean,
just a podcast.
no.
You know what I'm saying?
It's a
Like,
cigar. I mean, look, there's probably conversations.
this shit is
that,
not scripted for the podcast.
Nah.
I'm telling you
This
right
is
now.
just two brothers having a conversation.
We have conversations about faith. We have
Yeah.
conversations about business. Like every time we with each other, it's
Yeah.
about faith. We talk to each other about the struggles that we're dealing with. So I mean, I appreciate the conversations and to be able to be a guest on your show and being able to record this, to put this out there. Like this is a normal. I want people to know that this is a normal thing. When you're friends with Jason, you talk about shit like this. You feel the vulnerability of you as a human, but that allows other people to be vulnerable as well too. So
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and the more I remember some great conversations we've had, and just like you said, vulnerability. I remember calling you a couple times when I just needed a brother to share something with, right? But
100%,
I think that part of that strength comes from being able to be vulnerable, and that's the only way we're going to get any stronger. Just getting
100%.
in the gym together and pushing each other. So,
Yeah, yeah.
thank you again, guy, and congrats on the fourth baby girl.
Whew.
And
Pray for me.
so,
Pray for me.
you got four baby girls now, and
Yeah.
we'll hopefully continue this conversation. We'll do this again, and then we got to have Don on the show too.
Come on.
We'll have a
Hey, I'll
good
call
time.
him. I'll
Yeah,
call him and let him know for
he's up
sure.
here. We need him with a Don hat on the golf course.
For sure.
My
For
man,
sure.
good to
But
see you, brother.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.